All right, welcome into the Tiger Kickoff Show. We're happy again, and we might have found the good luck charm for the Missouri Tigers as we welcome in our Missourian crew, Adam Busack, Davis Wilson, Amelia Hurley. Amelia has our little friend who's returning from last show after a dramatic, thrilling fashion win for the Missouri Tigers and what was a rivalry that was brought back. But there is one thing about this owl we have to talk about here, Amelia. I don't think we have named this owl, so I think officially, especially with what was a crazy win for the Tigers, we have to name this owl in some regard and respect to the Mizzou-OU game. Can we think of a name for the owl?
What about Drew Pyne?
Ooh,
Pyne.
I like Pyne.
Pyne's perfect.
Pyne the owl. All right, I like it. I like Pyne the owl. And let's start with this, talking about Drew Pyne, because Pyne, he threw 3 touchdowns. He looked great. Obviously, yardage wasn't super high, but also he had a lot of short field position. I think here at the Tiger Kickoff Show, I don't want to say we trashed Drew Pyne by any means on Thursday, but I think we do owe Drew Pyne sort of an apology, because I just want to say to Drew Pyne, I was not familiar with your game. and Drew Pyne showed up and showed out. And someone said this to me the other day, and it almost clicked. I don't know why, but it seems to be when the Missouri student section starts booing the Missouri Tigers quarterback that some sort of fuel, some sort of fire is ignited, and they go on an absolute tear, because there were boos after what was a rough first half for the Missouri Tigers. And then that second half, especially that fourth quarter, I mean, you want to talk about Drew Pyne in the fourth quarter. It was absolutely excellent. So let's start there. Are you apologizing to Drew Pyne, or were you familiar with his game, Adam?
Jacob, I hate to be that guy, but I have to say that I was familiar with Drew Pyne's game. I mean, he improves to 9-3 as a starter now across 3 different schools. Obviously, Missouri, Arizona State, he only started 1 game, but led Notre Dame to 10 wins. And this is something that you and I talked about, Davis, going into the game on Saturday in the press box, was at a certain point, that 10-win Notre Dame quarterback has to be in there somewhere. Eventually, we're going to have to see flashes of it. It's just going to have to happen. I think the difference for Drew Pyne this week was that he kind of had the whole week to prepare as the starter. I know you give that line, that PR line about, I prepare every week as a starter regardless, right? And that's what he's supposed to say in press conferences. But there's a difference between going in thinking, I might have to play this week, or knowing for sure that the whole game is yours. This was the first time for Drew Pyne in now 3 contests that he's played in that he went into the game knowing that he was going to be the starter, and it was the one that he played the best in. I don't think that's, particularly surprising. I think that level of confidence, that level of preparedness was probably the difference for Drew Pyne. Now, to your point, you talk about those boos from the crowd, that being fuel for him. I'll leave you with this. That's a little bit of a more healthy fuel than we've seen in other Mizzou backups like Matty Mock. If boos are what can boost Drew Pyne, then let's keep booing him. It's a little healthier that way.
I want to go back to your first point about knowing that Drew Pyne was going to be the starter for this game, because it's something that Eli Drinkwitz also talked about as well in his post-game presser. As they tailored this entire game to fit who Drew Pyne was as a quarterback. And I think we got to see who he was as a quarterback. Theo Weiss, he said after the game, he's like, I didn't know that Drew Pyne could run like that. And there were some designed run plays for Drew Pyne to get out and move his legs and move around. And he's a gritty runner. So I think we see not just Drew Pyne knowing that he's the guy and having the confidence that, hey, this is my game to come into. I know I'm going to play. I know I'm going to start. But also that this Missouri Tigers team rallied around Drew Pyne and built their game plan around him as well. Now, did you see Drew Pyne grow throughout the game, Davis, or was he kind of consistent throughout?
I think he definitely grew a lot. Drinkwitz talked about in the first half they were really trying to establish a run, and I think we saw that. There were a lot of times on like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 where they handed it off, and you're just kind of thinking, what are they doing? But I think that was the intention. They went in there to establish a run. And then when you have it at a 1-score game at halftime, that's when Drinkwitz said he was ready to kind of open it up, let him throw. So I think we did see him get comfortable. I think establishing the run was a pretty good idea, just to make sure he was kind of comfortable and didn't make any early mistakes. And then I thought it was overall a pretty good strategy for him.
Amelia, what did you see from Pyne that you really liked? And obviously there is the potential here, if Cook shows up on the injury report again, that you will take into a hostile South Carolina environment.
Yeah, going off of what Davis said, I think we saw a lot of growth from Pyne throughout this game. The first half, I sensed some hesitancy. There were a couple moments where there was like an open area to run, and he just would kind of hold back for a second, and it just didn't seem like that confidence was all there. But we really saw that growth throughout the game, and I think that now that he has a win as a Missouri Tiger as the starter under his belt, that can really boost a lot of confidence and get rid of that hesitancy. Obviously, we saw him improve a lot in the second half. You saw him take more charge of the offense and be able to command that more. If we can see that continue, then it'll be a good game on Saturday.
Now let's take a second and go back and talk about the booing that was made a point of emphasis by Coach Drinkwitz after the game. He didn't hold back. He called out the media. He called out some fans as well. He said the environment was great, but quote unquote, like, we love you when you're with us, is what Eli Drinkwitz said. But when you're not, we just keep rolling without y'all. And that was a quote that stuck with me. It was like, is Drinkwitz calling out the fan base here? How'd you interpret that quote from Coach Drink?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what my thought process was as well. I mean, he even outwardly said, how many times am I going to have to stick up for my quarterback? It's ridiculous, things like that. I understand where his frustrations lie, but I will say that I think that they're a little bit misguided, right? Nobody can accuse this Missouri fan base of not being passionate, right? And they want their team to win, and when their team plays poorly, they're going to express that because they're passionate fans, right? I understand why Drinkwitz would have frustrations with fans booing your quarterback, right? That's your quarterback. You're supposed to stick up for your guy. But at a certain extent, if the team's playing poorly, you can't expect your fan base to just be a PR extension of the team.
And Davis, we saw Eli Drinkwitz after the game as well, went through and he quote tweeted all of the haters on Twitter in the press conference as well. He called out the Twitter trolls and all the things that exist here. Again, do you think that this is a warranted reaction from Eli Drinkwitz towards these Twitter trolls and everything like that? Obviously, we saw some, again, major media members saying things about Drew Pyne at halftime. But at the same time, again, like Adam said, it's a very passionate fan base.
Yeah, I think he was just pretty fired up. It was a big win. Obviously the Oklahoma stuff played a part. He opened the press conference by calling out Bob Stoops, which I loved. I thought that was awesome. I think it's fun, like when you have a coach that, is kind of embraces social media. Like you look at guys like Lane Kiffin and Drinkwitz, who just kind of seem to have fun with it, and it seems to fuel them. I think you always hear about how, they tune out the noise. I really don't think Drinkwitz does. I don't think he tunes out the noise. I think maybe the players do their best too, but Drinkwitz definitely does not. He is very in tune to the noise, and I don't think that's really a problem. I think that's kind of fun in some ways.
Well, even with Drew Pyne, he went on the whole social media blackout where he didn't participate in socials, but he still was feeling some of that pressure and some of that noise. That was a question that was asked of him in the press conference, right, Davis?
Yeah. He said he went dark for the week, which was probably a good idea. Fans, and Drinkwitz even called out the media in the room, saying that that we had been hard on Drew Pyne. And I think when you're playing quarterback in the SEC, there's going to be some things that people say like every single week, regardless of how you play. So I think that's probably a wise thing for him to just shut it down and focus on the game.
And Amelia here, let's move over and let's talk about this AP poll. 'Cause the Tigers, well, they're back in it. They left it last week. They're at 26. It was the first time in over a year that the Tigers were not in the AP poll. They climbed back into 24. But we're getting to a point in the year where the AP poll really does not mean as much, correct?
I agree, yeah. Right now, all eyes are on the college football playoff poll. That's what everyone's trying to get a spot in. That's what everyone's going to be going off of. But the AP poll still, in that meantime, where we don't get the CFP poll until Tuesday night, it provides a little bit of insight as to what may come. It's just like a nice reference point to have. And I do think that Missouri deserves to get in that win. They won a rivalry matchup again with their backup quarterback in the entire time. Now, was the performance absolutely stellar the entire game on offense? No. You had your backup quarterback. You had a tough Oklahoma defense there. So, I think they definitely deserve, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That was an incredible game with 4 fumble recoveries. That's kind of the name of the game. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we've talked about Drew Pyne, we talked about this offense. Again, it was a revenge game for Theo Weiss after the way he was treated at Oklahoma after a couple injuries. He had a moment with his dad after the game. They embraced, they hugged. He had a great game, 4 catches, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. So it was great to see Theo Weiss get back at his old rival. But let's talk about this defense for a brief moment here before we break down the rest of this CFP poll. 4 turnovers. All on the ground and fumbles set the Tigers up in great field position. They weren't able to score on all of them. However, that last scoop and score by Zion Young, one of those moments, Adam, that is going to go down in Tigers history?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would argue it already has. It's one of those moments that you just see so much on social media. It's going to be burned into your memory as a Missouri fan for, kind of the rest of your life. And I saw that night alone 3 different videos of that Zion Young fumble recovery, 3 different radio calls. It was obviously Mike Kelly with the Tiger Radio Network. It was Nate Gatter, a Mizzou alum, who was on the call for Westward One, and then obviously the student radio call as well with KCOU. And all 3 of them, I think, were phenomenal calls. It doesn't matter what version of this video you watch, you can just feel the electricity of the play.
Same sentiment, Davis?
Yeah, absolutely. I tweeted out a video of it, the broadcast video, and I said I think that was probably the loudest I've personally heard Faurot Field get, and I really think it is. I mean, the place erupted. In the press box, it's not an open-air press box, which, by the way, we need more open-air press boxes, in my opinion. But we heard it. We heard it loud and clear through the glass. It was really a special moment to witness as a journalist working the game, and also to see the way the fan base reacted. I really think it was one of those moments that the fans needed it, the team needed it, and I think it's absolutely going to be remembered forever.
I did want to ask you on this because I saw the tweet. Do you think that was louder than when Vanderbilt missed the kick in overtime? Because that was around the same level of decibels.
Yeah, I do. And maybe that's just because the moment seemed bigger. It's more fun to scoop and score than watch a kid miss a field goal. But I thought it was the loudest I've heard it in there, personally.
And Amelia, what did you see out of this defense? Obviously, the head point was that Zion Young scoop and score touchdown to seal the game. Did you see anything else out of this defense that you really liked?
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense as a whole played extremely well. You saw the fight happen all 4 quarters of the entire game, and it wasn't just Young, which, by the way, when he was talking in the post-game press conference about it, he has one of the most fun personalities, I think, in a press conference that we've seen so far. So to see him get that game ball, get excited about that, it just showed the passion that I think the defense as a whole has for this team, regardless of who's leading in under quarterback or what the circumstances are of the game. But yeah, I mean, everyone, there was a lot of key players to the game. There was Newsom, Flagg, Johnson. I mean, they all just had really great games. So it was a really good performance overall, in my opinion.
And we started on the college football playoff poll. We're going to get back to it now here with Adam. When it comes to the CFP poll, Tigers were at 24. Now it's still a question mark. They'll be released today, Tuesday, at 8:30 p.m. Where do you think the Tigers will fall?
They're moving up. I think almost certainly they're moving up. I expect Pitt to drop out entirely. I would expect Iowa State to drop behind them as well. I think that's 2 teams, that picked up losses this weekend. Missouri, obviously, with the win, but also just based off of what we've seen from the College Football Ranking Committee in the past, they're always going to give a slight nod to the SEC, and I think rightfully so. It's the most difficult conference in college football, but if they give that edge to Missouri, I think even as a 2-loss team, you're going to see them jump some 1-loss teams. And I don't think there are going to be any 2-loss teams from other conferences that are going to be ahead of the Tigers, frankly.
South Carolina, ranked at 23 in the AP poll. You think they get into the college football playoff, and they will have a college football ranked-on-ranked matchup next week in Columbia, South Carolina?
I certainly think they should. I mean, we'll talk about it more Thursday, obviously, but that's a good team, and that's probably the best team that Missouri has left on the schedule, the best chance they have to get a really good win. Playing at Columbia, South Carolina is a underratedly tough, difficult place to play, so I would imagine they're going to be ranked, yeah.
Yeah, man, only ranked win so far, Boston College. So far in the year, the Tigers have beat a ranked-on-ranked team. Amelia, when it comes to the college football playoff, The Tigers' hopes coming into the year was to be inside that top 12. Right now, 24. We're talking about moving up. What needs to happen for the Tigers to get inside that threshold of 12 in these next 3 weeks?
A lot. I personally, and this is just my opinion, a lot of people disagree. I just don't know that there's a ton of possibility for that to happen at this point in the season. I think if it is going to happen, offense, like we've been saying all season, I think obviously with Pyne, it didn't necessarily click. They need to have a really strong offensive game. There needs to be just a lot of clicking in general in different position groups as well, with the O-line, with just wide receivers connecting to the quarterback rather than just, so much of the run game. So there's a lot of things that need to happen. I think the defense is definitely at that caliber right now where they would be playoff potential, ready. I just think that there's other sides of the ball that need to have that emphasis in these upcoming games.
Yeah, the Tigers potentially might need a little bit of help as well. But the Tigers, well, they did it themselves against Oklahoma. Again, we built up this rivalry, and it did not disappoint. Even in a game that we thought could have potentially disappointed, and maybe after the first half you thought would disappoint with both those offenses struggling. However, it turned out to be a magical moment. Let's talk about our grades here as we break down again. You said it, one of those moments that Missouri Tiger fans are going to have etched in their memory forever. Let's start with you, Adam, and what your grade is for this moment for the Tigers.
The Zion Young touchdown, I think, was the icing on the cake, but the cake itself was the 2-minute drill that Drew Pyne put together to march Missouri down the field and score the tying touchdown. It was a couple phenomenal throws, obviously, to Theo Weiss, a really nice one to Luther Burden as well. That was one of the best drives that I've seen Missouri maintain all season long, regardless of who the quarterback was. To get that kind of play out of Drew Pyne and to get a win in a game like this where you're underdogs going in, even at home, I think speaks volumes for this Missouri team. For that reason, I'm giving them an A.
Jamal Roberts, who had a really good game, and Drinkwitz praised him for the way he ran. He's a tough runner. When he fumbled and Oklahoma picked it up and scored, you could feel the energy in the place disappear. And just to reiterate what Adam said, for Drew Pyne to lead the team down the field, make some tough throws. Luther Burden, I think the catch down the left sideline for Luther Burden, was a lot more difficult than he made it look. That was a really tough catch. And then obviously you have the one that Theo gets the foot down. I thought that was I think that was just one of the best drives we've seen all year. And then on the other side of the ball, you got the defense, four turnovers, 4 fumbles. They actually forced a 5th fumble that Oklahoma fell on. They were everywhere. Dalen Carnell is another guy we haven't even talked about who I thought was all over the place, had an excellent game. So I'm going to also go with an A.
I agree completely with the reasons Adam and Davis said. I think that particular drive by Pyne was something that I personally wasn't expecting to see from him in this game, and it was a very pleasant surprise. I am going with an A- just because I am a tough grader, and I think that in order for me to be able to give an A, I would need to see that performance through all 4 quarters, or at least not as much hesitancy at the beginning of the game. But I do think this was a really stellar performance, and definitely hats off to Pyne and the rest of the team for getting that win.
At this point in the year, with all the Tigers have gone through, Drew Pyne starting over Brady Cook, who's out with an injury, and Cook, again, their leader, the guy that they all come together around out. This could have been a game that the Tigers went down and died in after getting shut out in Tuscaloosa, but they didn't. They came back, they showed heart, they showed fight. We've mentioned it on this show before. Good teams find ways to win, and that's what the Tigers did. I have them with an A, and it's hard to give them an A+ in a game with Oklahoma in the years these two teams have had, but it's etching in that territory just because for what this season has been, for the disappointments that Tiger fans have had, you have these moments in 2024 that you are going to remember forever as a Tigers fan. You have the Vanderbilt game, and now you've got this one in Oklahoma. And if the Tigers can continue to build on this and get a little help and maybe etch in to that top 12, who knows where this season could go. But that's all our time here on the Tiger Kickoff Show today. I want to give a great thanks again to our wonderful Missourian staff who this show is brought to you by, and Adam Busak, Davis Wilson, Amelia Hurley, and our new little friend Pyne. named after you, Drew Pyne, for delivering home the first rivalry win back in the SEC between Mizzou and Oklahoma. But guess what? South Carolina, the Mayor's Cup, another rivalry. Yeah, that's next week. We'll have that full breakdown coming for you on Thursday as we review and preview every game here on the Tiger Kickoff Show. Have a great Monday night, everyone.